Hello everyone, this is Shaitan bringing you another game from MLG Orlando. This is from the 5th winners bracket round between Millennium Stephano, who is the red Zerg in the top right position here on Shakuros Plateau, and OGS TheStC, spawning as the blue Terran in the top left. OGS TheStC is up 1-0 after a quick 2 racks, managed to defeat Stephano on dual site in game 1. We'll see what sort of strategies the two of them choose to pursue in this one. It's very possible that the STC will again choose to do a 2 racks, as the map architecture is quite friendly for that. If you come over to the natural and you build bunkers right here above the ramp, you can actually get a complete wall off, which means that Zergling surface area on the bunkers is limited to only half, which means that they're just simply not going to die as quickly. It is potentially difficult to get the buildings up there, as any drone put in these positions will prevent the going up of the bunker, but it is something that Zergs do need to worry about. So nothing really we know from either player's strategic choices yet. It doesn't look like the SCC is going to be going for as greedy of as aggressive as an opening as last time. He's going up to 13 SCVs, so he's probably going to be going for a command center first, as the traditional barracks build time is at 12. So expect a very macro focused build from the STC coming out. Meanwhile, on Stephano's side, he's actually sent out his drone. He's going to be going 15 hatch. Very standard for this matchup. ZvT, he's actually a little bit late, about 40 minutes late. But no big deal. He plants the hatchery down, expect to see a pool coming up fairly soon. He does know that there is no barracks for Stephano, which means that, there's no barracks up for the STC, which means that he can build a few more drones. He's gone up to 15 again, and now he's building the pool, I guess, a little at 15. He could have gone up to 16 or even 17 if he wanted to, because remember, there is no barracks up. The SDC has just begun building his command center, and now at the 3-minute mark he's building his first barracks. But it's not really that big of a deal. Perhaps Stephano wanted to make sure that if there was a barracks proxy here or something, that he would be safe. So both of them are just macroing up, continuing to produce SCVs. The SDC is actually going to be taking a fairly quick refinery, which points to him not going to be staying on purely marine tech for all that long. One of the popular follow-ups to a command center first is just building 3, maybe 4 more barracks and then applying some pressure right there. Stephano did scout the command center. He knows what's up. He knows that his opponent probably won command center first, so he's going to have to respond in kind. Stephano is also taking a gas. He's building queens above his natural and main. He's not actually transferring any drones, and I guess it's not that big of a deal. He's only at 18 drones at his main, so the transfer wouldn't matter that much, especially if he changes his rally to the natural. But over on the STC side of things, he's just mining some Vespene. The first Rax is out. The first Marine is being produced. Stephano has actually chosen to forego making any lings. He knows that with the type of opening that the STC has chosen, the pressure is not very likely. He's just moving some overlords around to get in position for future scouting. I don't know how much I like this positioning. Maybe have it over here, so if the STC builds anything here, it can be scouted. A factory is actually going up. It's possible that we might just be seeing something like a delayed Reactor Hellion expand, with the Reactor Hellion part after the expand in this case. It'd be interesting to see how the timings on that work out, as part of the reason that build is so effective is because the Hellions come out fairly early before Zergling speed is up, sometimes even before a spine crawler is out, but it looks like Stephano is going to be more than prepared. He's building a spine crawler at the top of his ramp. He's making it full of lings. Zergling speed has already started, and he's droning up quite nice. He's already ahead of his opponent by 5 SCVs, and that's just going to get bigger as these 4 drones come out. But on the STC side, he's actually going 2 factory, and the first reactor has a tech lab on it. Now, it's possible that this could be blue flame Hellions off of 2 factories. I would actually predict that it would be that, since there's only the 1 gas, so the STC is probably going to aim to have 150 gas and just pump and research blue flame and then pump out from these 2 factories. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a reactor here. I doubt it. He'll probably just be pumping 2 Hellions at a time, eventually getting blue flame and trying to do some damage there. Meanwhile, on Stephano's side, he's actually transitioning to a lair off of 4 gas. Stephano is actually a player that's more fond of doing infestor-based openings rather than the more popular Mutalisk-based play that is really frequently seen in ZvT, and players such as Idra oftentimes use it. But against the Hellion opening, if the Infestor, I think the Infestor tech will actually get there a bit earlier, so it should make him pretty safe to these Blue Flame Hellions as long as he controls them, as long as he's, I guess, vigilant about pulling drones if he needs to. Nope, I guess I was wrong. Stephano looks like he is going to go for a Spire. He's getting a defensive Baneling Nest. I don't think that he really has any idea what's going on in his opponent's base. Unfortunate for him because there are 7 Marines coming out and 2 Hellions that might have... Oh, there's actually 4 Hellions. Those Hellions will probably have Blue Flame by the time the important engagement happens, but right now he's probably just going to move and try and take out some creep tumors, maybe do some damage to the Queen, see if he can pick one off. So a total of 5 Hellions, 7 Marines coming out for a little poke from the STC. Stephano should be fairly well equipped to handle it. He does have the Evo Chamber at the ramp. This means the surface area for the Hellions to get by is not going to be all that large. They're going to be forced through these funnels, which means it's going to be easier for them to defend. The Spire is almost done. Stephano is banking up some gas for it. He should have enough for 7 or 8 mutas as soon as that's done. He's actually morphing some Banelings just to be absolutely safe. So he should have enough for 6 mutas. The worker count is 48 to 42. Stephano holding a slight lead. I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't oversaturated his bases, just so when he takes his inevitable third, he'll be able to instantly saturate it. This is actually some cute micro from the STC. He kind of messed it up right there, but he doesn't want to waste the scan, so he's focus firing his friendly units so that the splash damage, or I guess the line damage, goes through the creep tumor and kills it, but he messed up his micro there and accidentally killed one of his own Hellions. Unfortunate. So over on Stephano's side we see 7 mutas coming up, +1 air attack, +1 carapace, while the STC is just continuing on. He's building 4 more barracks, so he's on 5 racks. He's getting double tech lab, and he's starting up tank production. He's also beginning double upgrades and beginning an armory. It looks like he's just shifting into macro mode. He has the missile turrets going up at the perfect time. He's going to be ready to stop those Mutalisks that have been revealed and are chasing down the Hellions of the STC. But it doesn't look like this will do too much damage. The STC actually having taken this 3rd base sometime in the previous minutes. He already has it up, but the 2 turrets mean that the Mutalisks aren't going to be able to do too much damage. It's actually a fairly late stim from the STC, but I guess he felt secure with the fact that he had all these Hellions maintaining map control. That is actually a lot of Hellions. It looks like 11 Hellions are out right now. Any sort of lane counterattacks are not going to do that much. Meanwhile, Stephano has taken his 3rd base. It's about halfway done. Unfortunately, it's a little bit behind the STCs, who is just mass powering up right now. He's getting 4 reactors on his barracks. He's going to be able to pump Marines out 9 at a time, tanks out 2 at a time. He's actually building some Thors right now for Mutalisk defense. Good choices. If you allow those Mutalisks to spiral out of control, then turrets just simply aren't going to do it. They'll be able to 1 or 2 shot them, even with mass repair. So Thors are a good defense against that. Oh, Stephano's actually double expanding. There's the Baneling counterattack right here, where that actually did a fair amount of damage. Let's look, 12 workers killed by Stephano, and now the Mutalisks are rolling in, but they're not really going to be able to do anything. 16 drones being produced by Stephano. He's going up to about 70 drones, which is pretty close to the number you want to have in terms of as a long-term investment. You might want to initially get up to 100 just to really power your economy, but then you'll want to sacrifice some of those into spine crawlers to get closer toward the 60 or 70 number. There's some continued harassment going on from Stephano. He only has 12 Mutalisks. He's getting +2, 16 Mutalisks. There's 4 more that are up here. And they're continuing up. They're going to go try to get into the main. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive he tries to be with these. At the same time, it's interesting to note that the supplies are were fairly even until Stephano decided to make 40 Lings, but Stephano is only up 20 supply, and he's coming in here trying to take out the Thor, but he lost a lot of Mutalisks. That was not worth it. He took way too much damage from this ring of missile turrets, a couple of Marines, and the Thor. Just to take out that singular Thor is simply not worth it on Stephano's end. They're fairly even in drones, and it looks like the STC is going to come out here and clear up some creep tumors. Very important. When you end up engaging the Zerg, you want the creep to be as receded as possible due to the fact that the Zerglings and Banelings just move so fast on creep. Stephano is actually coming over here. I guess he's searching, maybe thinking that there's going to be a dropout, but there's nothing really right there. The Mutalisk Ball has been rebuilt by a couple. I don't know if Stephano is actually going to continue production. He did lose about 10 there. He might just consider it a lost cause. He is getting a Roach Warren, which is probably a good move. Maybe a couple Roaches might be good as defense against these Hellions, but with a Marine tank build, the Roaches aren't going to do too much. I'm kind of surprised that it took the STC so long to get a starport. It's been built, the reactor is about halfway done, and then there's Banelings coming into the third, but with the perfect tank positioning up top and quick reaction time, I don't think he lost more than a handful, maybe. So really great reaction by the STC. He's continuing production. His 2-2 is almost done. He has +1 vehicle weapons coming out of the armory. And pretty soon I think he's going to be ahead in the upgrade battle. The Zerglings and Banelings are 1-1. The Mutas are almost 2-0, but 2-2 Marines are going to be really good. And eventually they'll be up to 3-3. The creep has receded quite nicely. It's not encroaching on the STC side of the map. He's actually built his 4th command center. He hasn't floated it over yet to take his 4th, but it's really nice to see a macro-oriented Terran, someone sort of like Bomber, rather than someone focused on one of those, 10-minute timing attacks in hopes that he can cripple the Zerg's economy there. Stephano does have his 4th base up. He's not mining gas off of it, so he's only off of 6 gas. It would be nice to see him take the gases here as well, since in the late game especially, Zergs are going to be highly gas starved rather than mineral starved, and when he's transitioning to Brood Lords or Ultras or whatever tier 3 tech he wants, he's going to want all that gas. He doesn't actually have even an infestation pit down. He's researching roach speed, so it'll be interesting to see what he's choosing to do with that. There's a little bit of movement out from the Zerglings and Banelings. He has 33 Banelings, which is a fairly high amount. If he can catch this tiny army on siege, it will prove to be very effective, but the STC has 72 Marines and 6 tanks. That should be enough to handle the Zerg army, assuming the STC manages to properly focus fire the Banelings when he comes out. I don't know how much I like if this is just a poke taking out creep tumors, maybe making the Zerg feel uncomfortable, I like it, but and here it moves out. The entire Zerg army moves in, the Banelings are rolling in, the Mutas are getting decimated by the Thor, but the Baneling hits are coming through and they're taking out every single Marine. The STC just got a little bit too greedy with his Marine stutter step and didn't properly go back. Let's see if this focus fire manages to take out the Banelings. It does. Most of the Banelings die, but all of these SCVs are going to die. Meanwhile, the Roaches and Zerglings of Stephano are pushing forward into the STC's base, but the STC is doing some amazing micro and drops with this drop ship, and he's able to defend fairly well. There's a couple of Roaches within his main and only about 5 Mutalisks left, but it looks like the STC is going to be able to defend with these 2 tanks popping out of his factory. Stephano walks out of that engagement up about 50 supply. He's still streaming in Roaches. I don't know if I like this. The Roaches are just going to get cleaned up by the tanks of the STC, and it seems like he's just throwing away units at this point. I understand that he wants to end the battle as quickly as possible, and he sees an opening and wants to take it, but there is something to be said for discretion being the better part of valor. He should know to pull back, and as Artosis said, just when you're ahead, get more ahead. Right now, this isn't really the position he should be fighting into. Don't go for the death blow. Come and take out this third, because fighting into this fortified position is very difficult. So right now he's going to walk out of this. He hasn't taken out the third. He's only up about 20 supply. He hasn't done any significant infrastructure damage. So all in all, I think as the STC, you're going to be pretty happy about that, especially because you still have the 4th here ready to go. Your opponent is only on 4 bases. He's only on lair tech. He doesn't even have an infestation pit down, which means that as the STC, you're in a pretty favorable spot. You've sacrificed about 20 SCVs, sure, but you still have mules, and mules are pretty damn awesome. You're also getting +3 armor, and your Marines already have +3 attack, so you're going to have the upgrade advantage as well as getting a level 2 miss vehicle weapons against a 1 Carapace, 1 melee attack Zerg. Stephano is finally getting a 5th. Actually, no, it just looks like a macro hatchery somewhere. And then we have a drop in the south location. I don't think it'll do a terrible amount of damage, but even these drops are just going to be enough to keep keep Stephano in his base, maybe take out a couple of drones at each one, and that's all he wants to do. He wants to have enough time to just macro up and rebuild his army, and if he's sacrificing 6 or 7 lings, he's even getting the medevac? No, medevac's going to die too. But these are losses that he can afford to take, especially if they let him take this 4th base right here. Stephano is up about 30 supplies right now, but about 15 of that is in workers, so the supply difference isn't as large as you might think. About 15, Stephano has rebuilt, or the TheStC has built up about 7 tanks and 43 marines. The 7 tanks are going to prove really, really effective against these roaches and zerglings, but we'll see if the TheStC falls for these baneling landmine traps. They look perfectly positioned. Although I don't know, if the TheStC just kind of goes through in the middle, it might not do enough damage. Meanwhile, the Mutalisks are attacking before these turrets go up. They didn't look like they did too much damage, so nothing really significant to point out. The Stephano is back up to about 17 Mutalisks, which is something that count should get higher in order to do, I guess, effective harassment against double turrets at each of these bases. He's finally getting the infestation fit, which means he'll be able to move into hive tech and get those broodlords, which will be what he needs to break the sort of division of ground that the TheStC is forming. I'm really curious to see if the TheStC is going to fall for these baneling landmines. I don't like their position. I would prefer another set right here. The TheStC's moving out, but Stephano's going to hold out for later. He doesn't want to... Oh, and here, the TheStC's moving down, and there's the explosion! The TheStC cannot be happy about that. I wonder if Stephano's going to move in for an attack right here. I'm not too certain. Like, that was a significant amount of marines, but the TheStC is making them 9 at a time. I would have liked to see him maybe put out 1 or 2 more barracks. His money is fairly low, so I guess he probably knows better than I the right amount of barracks to have. It's really interesting to see how low his money stays. It's sub 400 almost all the time, and you just don't see that level of precision from a lot of pro gamers outside of Korea. I also like this marine placement here. He knows that these 2 turrets might not be enough to stop the entirety of the attack. Oh, he's finally moving out right at the worst time. We'll see how these turrets hold up to the Mutalisk grass. He's going in. Will he pull to get... Oh, the turret goes down right away. The second turret goes down right away. The SCVs are going to have to evacuate. He's moving some marines down. He's actually moving almost too many marines down, I think. But this planetary fortress won't go down. He's building another command center right in the front of the Mutalisk's eyes. He's prepared to go for the long haul, and he wants Stephano to know that. These Mutalisks are moving into the natural, maybe into the main, see what damage they can do to the infrastructure. They're actually moving to the natural. They are taking a bit of damage, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. They're taking out all sorts of SCVs that they can. The Marines are running around, stimming, trying to do as much damage, but the Mutalisks can just run along this sort of back pathway now. They're back to the 4th, and the turret is there, and the turrets as well as the Marines are scaring off. As this is happening, the TheStC is moving out for a bit of a push. He wants to take out the 5th of Stephano. Stephano has moved his units around for a bit of a flank. The TheStC pulls back. These banelings and zerglings are going to be able to take out a large portion of these tanks, but it's not going to be enough. The nice layering of the tanks means that even though he's losing this front part of his army, about 5 tanks are still left, and that's enough to sort of have him retain the position. He's going to be losing this 5th base, which is going to be devastating for Stephano because it's now 4 base versus 4 base, and the TheStC has set up sort of a chokehold on this middle position of the map, which means that Stephano is going to be very hard pressed to move beyond it. It's going to be very difficult to get access to these, access to any of these bases unless he uses these Mutalisks, which are taking damage. They're slowly being whittled down. He's only down to 16, and eventually that's going to go down, especially if Stephano does something like, or the TheStC does something like catch them with Marines or position Thors at a couple of those bases. The TheStC is actually taking his 5th base. Stephano is trying to take his 5th base as well, but when the TheStC catches wind of this, I wouldn't be surprised for him to move out there and do another push through this small corridor and take it out again. The Greater Spire is on the way. That's exactly what he needs to break through these sort of fortified positions. But even then, if the Terran properly transitions to Ghosts or has enough Vikings out, without Infestor support, the Vikings are going to be able to take out the Broodlord, and even with Infestor support, Mass Ghost play is very, very powerful because of Snipe and EMP. Meanwhile, these Mutalisks are just kind of swinging back and forth. I'm kind of surprised that there's no turrets here. He's going to be able to take out a few of the Mules and SCVs, but nothing too significant. He's going to take out this turret, but once this turret goes up, I don't think this is going to do anything. The STC is actually trying to set up a pincer move, and he's flying right into the Marines. He's losing about 4 or 5 of them. That was a pretty big deal. I mean, he has enough money to... He's actually banked 3K. Wow. He's going to need to, you know, start making some sort of mass spine crawlers here or something so that he can get out those ever-important Broodlords. I would have liked to also see him get out the Corruptors a little bit earlier. He's going to slightly mistimed. Here there's actually a Zergling counterattack that took out a few SCVs, but the mineral patches are almost gone, so it's not that big of a deal. We're now up to 53 SCVs versus 75 drones. This is fine for the STC. I mean, sure, he's losing a couple of SCVs here, but his macro is doing fine. He has mules now off of 1, 2, 3 orbital commands. He has those 53 SCVs spread out over about 2.5 bases, which is almost the perfect amount. I wouldn't be too concerned about the amount of bases he has. He is moving out to take out the 5th, and I think it's going to work out before he can take it out before any sort of response is even seen. He's actually watching his flank right here so that he doesn't get counterattacked by these units. He actually ran some Marines in to sacrifice them on Banelings, and I think he actually took a couple of them out just for the cost of a couple Marines due to miscontrol. So things are not looking good for Stephano. He's down 1 base to a Terran who has plenty of tanks. He has 7 tanks. He has a bunch of 3-3 Marines. He's going against 0-1 Roaches. He doesn't have any sort of ground army outside of those really supply and efficient Roaches. He does have these 5 Broodlords, and so it's going to be up to those to see if they can actually do anything. These tanks are actually doing more damage to their Marines than they're helping, but the fact of the matter is that like, the supplies aren't all that. This attack hasn't done the damage that it needed to. I really don't like the fact that Stephano is relying so much on these Roaches. The tanks are just able to do terrible damage to them as they sort of waddle in. Even with Roach speed, they're not as fast as Zerglings. They're not going to be able to close the distance quite quickly enough. So they're taking a lot of unnecessary damage. In addition, they're just going to be... They're so supply inefficient that his max army is never going to be quite as big. These Broodlords are actually going to be taken out by the Marines and Vikings. He's going to be able to just stim and run underneath them. He might lose all of these Mutalisks too. This was horrible control from Stephano. Where are his Infestors? Did he lose them all in the engagement? He has 1 Infestor, but it's nowhere to be seen. I think this might have just been a horrible mistake by Stephano that could cost him the game. His supplies are now even. He doesn't have any sort of army whatsoever to speak with in terms of sort of the filler unit you need. He's making 8 Infestors and 7 Corruptors and 26 Zerglings, but he needed those Zerglings and Roaches to be right there to prevent the simple stim and run underneath the Broodlords and kill them all, and because of that, he's going to lose his 5th again. He might even lose this the second expansion that another small group of Marines is going to take out. So the STC is just able to continually deny these expansions Stephano desperately needs to have. He's down to only 3 patches on his 3rd base. He's mined out his natural, mined out at his main, and the 4th base, which has a drop right now doing a little bit of damage, is down to 5 patches. This means he needs this 5th base to be up, but it's going to be taken out by this drop. There's simply not enough of a ground army from the STC. He's desperately trying to attack with a couple of Roaches and an Infestor, but even if he's taking this out, the hatchery is down. Stephano is down to only 900 minerals. He simply doesn't have the economy to support, whereas the STC is up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases against a 4-base Zerg, of which only about maybe 3/4 of the base he has mining. So I think the STC is going to have to attack with all of his army. He only has 15 Roaches to his name, a couple of Broodlords, some Corruptors, and Infestors, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to win in the game. He might be able to take out this army, but then what happens? The STC is going to be able to remax. He has 6 times the income, and I don't think this time it's because of mules, and he's just going to be able to crush any sort of attack. He's going to be able to crush the attack with the follow-up, which means that the STC, Stephano might be able to kill this army, but it's not going to win in the game. This is just a desperation attack that might seem like it's working, but as soon as he loses everything, it's going to be GG from Stephano. And there we go, all the Broodlords died. Maybe, you know, Stephano might just be a happy guy with Gratz, and the STC takes the series 2-0 to advance to the winners bracket finals of his little mini bracket, I suppose.